event, and will be available on our YouTube channel and also on the project website. And we'll have a link out to people in the next week or so. So today I'd like to first introduce our project artists. So again, we have commissioned artists Hasaan, Kirkland, and Damon Brown to act as project planning artists. And so their role here is to be a liaison between the city and the community to figure out, what is the community interest in artwork for this, and how they can help synthesize all of the thoughts, feelings, and ways at which art can be a part of this project, and work with us and sort of try to come to a balance. And I will let Hasaan and Damon will start first with introducing himself.
Hello and welcome. My name is Damon Brown. I am an artist, and actually I am born and raised in the Central District area of Seattle. So it is wonderful that I was asked to be part of this project. I have recently been a part of some other projects that have going on around the Seattle area. Friends of the Waterfront project, history being written, also an Othello Square project, and then I'm part of the Artist Interruption Public Boot Camp that will be on be hosted on Lake City this year. Next slide. One of the projects is the Othello Square Arenda Movement room, where I was asked to create artwork that reflected the history and traditions of the Othello neighborhood as a place that has always been welcoming to all people. This public installation is currently being put together and should be up and running this year. Next slide. And another project is history being written, Friends of the Waterfront installation that will be hosted on the waterfront. This was a piece that I created titled Being, that spoke to the history of Seattle, its past, its elders, and its connection through the waterfront. And again, this exhibition will be presented by the Friends of Waterfront and be up pretty soon. And I will pass it over to Hasaan.
Thank you, Damon. And also thank you, Jason and Janice and Meishu, for being with us on this opportunity to share some art and culture with the city of Seattle and also with the state of Washington, but specifically the neighborhood that's around this particular park. As been introduced, Hasaan Kirkland. I'm a professor of fine art as well as a curator and a contract content advisor when it relates to art or public art. My experience with art in my former perspective of my career is related to art and education. Been a professor for about 23 years at the collegiate level. Some of the institutions in the current state that I've been engaged with, Seattle University, Seattle Central College. Also in my own profession, I'm still seeking a little bit more perspective when it comes to being an educator. I'm currently a doctoral student at University of Washington in the College of Education, where my focus in the arts is related to art as pedagogy. Also to my career, I am a curator, and I'm the former chief curator of the Northwest African American Museum. And some of the highlights for those who've been in the community may have seen some of the shows: Hiawatha D's Ain't I a Woman, Warren Pope's Timelines, Bloodlines, Red Lines, and then also Jeremy Bell's Utopian Blackness. These are three of recent curatorial functions that I took stead over when I was at the museum. But I've also been involved in other contractual curatorial resources or advisement functions throughout the city. One of the resources that I connected with was with Visual Cognetics, the Goethe Pop-Up Seattle, and then also dealing with MoHI, Stand Up Seattle, Democracy Now!, which is a great exhibit that's relevant to some of the concerns that we're trying to help to provide with culture and art here at the Spruce Street Park, that I would encourage you all to take a look at and learn more about your city and the history that the city has. As an artist, I'm also located at my website, which is HassaanKirkland.com. And the aspect of what I would like to share and connect with Damon is that we have a long connection in history, and he's the resident of Seattle, and I'm the friend, so to speak. And we go a long way back, back to our college days. And it's a great opportunity to work with him as a partner and to be able to follow his lead of understanding the Seattle community, but also to be able to add to his perspective with what I would like to offer by being an artist and an educator and an advocate for the arts, for the culture that we all appreciate and love about Seattle. All right, next slide. One of the recent projects that I have curated was the Gothic pop-up, which was connection to the visual cognetics, was no longer and not yet. It was a small exhibit, but a powerful one. And I was delighted to be a part of it because the community was able to see, however brief, a perspective that is reflective of our contemporary issues dealing with politics and community and culture. And the artist, John Afalter, was fabulous in his works to develop the conceptual understandings of his relationship to how he was experiencing this time frame with the pandemic, with what's going on in our political perspectives, and how a voice in the community many times has many things to say that needs a vehicle. And so as a curator, I look to provide that scope to what this project provides in concert with Damon and his experience and all of his knowledge, but also to help to share what our community desires in the many different voices to try to synthesize them into something that celebrates all of us. Next slide, please. As an artist, one of the recent projects that I have been a part of was the Redmond Public Art Intensive. Similar to Damon, we have lives that are of our profession, but then within that, we are also independent artists, and then we are also art businessmen. The work that I submitted was titled, "I Don't See Color," and it had much to do with being able to be recognized and seen as an American, but also having a cultural connection to my own ancestral perspectives. But to know that while we are collectively different, we also are unified while having allegiance to this particular country. And so one of the ways that we would like for our ideologies to be seen are many times in the function of our patriotism or in the recognition of our connection to this country. And so I created this work of art to reflect the multiplicity of all of us by having a work of art shine and create the vibrance of the multiple colors in natural light. So when you think of the rainbow, think about all of the colors that are symbolized in that reflection rather than having it only seemingly isolate to one particular culture. Next slide. All right, so we are definitely happy to be here and to share, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Janice Liang to kind of share the beginning of our connection to this park by having her start us off with a discussion about the mini park play area and the renovation project that it is. Janice?
Thank you, Hassan, and thank you, Jason and Damon. Yeah, we're really glad to partnership with the Arts and Culture Office and get the 1% art funding for this project. So I'm Janice Lian, and I'm the project manager for the play area renovation project. Meisho Lin is the landscape architect who is doing the design work for the play area. Next, please. And so in the next few slides, we're gonna briefly talk about the community park background and the play area renovation. Later on, Hasaan and Damon will come back and present the scope of work for the public art and discuss the potential locations, design, and content for the artwork. And then they will briefly talk about the focus of the artist call, and then we'll open up for questions at the end. Next slide, please. So to start, I want to acknowledge that the lands and waters on which we're standing today is the traditional home of the Coast Salish people, past and present, and we honor with gratitude that the land itself and the Coast Salish tribe, without them, we would not have access to this gathering and to this dialogue. And so for Spruce Street, it's a park within 23rd and Union Jackson neighborhood, and it is a vibrant and multicultural community, and it's proud of its African American heritage, and as well as many links to other cultures. Through our research and our community feedbacks, we acknowledge that there is a tremendous cultural richness to this neighborhood, and there's a strong community participation with many critical players in the city's comprehensive development. And these acknowledgements will be the basis for our team to continue our design process and for the artwork and as well as the play area as a whole. Next, please. And some brief background about the park. So Spruce Street Park was purchased in 1969 by the city, and it was first developed in the 1970s. Per the Sherwood files, the parks was named by the park board and its name was taken from the adjacent street. The play area was later underwent a renovation in 1986, and it is still in the same configuration. As part of the Parks and Open Space Plan for the play area renovation and safety projects, the Seattle Parks District provided $800,000 in funding, including planning, design, and construction for the Spruce Street play area renovation. So the focus will be improving on safety and accessibility for the play area. And so from our early outreach event through online surveys, we want to thank all the people who have gave input for the concept designs and ideas for the artwork. And we have heard all your wonderful ideas and as well as concerns about the park, and we will put that into consideration as we move forward with the design. Next, please. So next month, Seattle Parks will be reaching out to everyone, to the community, to present the final schematic design plan, and then we will provide showing options with the play equipment and address any consideration and questions from everyone. We'll have more opportunity to talk with you about the site design and the project scope in more detail. And so for today's conversation on the public art, I would like to pass the presentation back to Damon and Hasaan and to discuss more about the artwork. And yeah. Damon, you're muted.
Damon, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you. So when we asked the community, what is the community character or identity that best reflected in the park, many expressed African, Asian, Hispanic, and Jewish American community. They definitely wanted to include the Central District neighborhood energy, which is great, and also the essence of local diversity within historic and contemporary presence. Next slide. And from that October survey, definitely we had an overwhelming response. And again, we appreciate that. From the census, the community is definitely interested in the following: some kind of visual representation, which could either be a mural on a wall or on vinyl, some kind of sculptural or tactile mosaic tile type art, or textile that could be vinyl in nature. Next slide.
For these suggestions that you all have provided, as Damon and others have celebrated in the survey and the success of the survey, so definitely thank you. You guys gave us quite a bit to sort through and to utilize as a way to, really find out exactly what you guys were interested in. And I think it has become abundantly apparent. So to that point, what you're seeing on the diagram is isolated areas that will give you an indication about where some of the artwork can go as it relates to the mini park. If you're looking at the diagram, and you can see first and foremost, there is a perimeter of a dotted line that goes around, and it's a box. That is first and foremost to let you know everything outside of the box, near the street where the cars are, the sidewalks, artwork will not be on those areas. So if you focus on the diagram and see inside of the box, there you'll begin to see an area of orange squares, and then also a very highlighted area in pink, and then also some blue areas. Those areas are located opportunities that we will give the artist through the art call, which we'll talk about in a moment, opportunities to put some artwork that will reflect the community, reflect their exuberance to the desire of cultural diversity, as well as give the artist a chance to produce something that's not only interesting or educational, but is relevant to beautifying the park that will also align with the new design that the mini park will provide. And so you're seeing that on the pink areas, there's a pathway that could be utilized for the artist's platform to create as far as the sidewalk. The blue areas could be either benches or tables, or it could be small perimeter walls that could be created when the park is then redesigned that can also take some artwork. And again, as I mentioned, those orange squares are also selected areas that there can be some artwork to be noted. So the options for the art inclusion into the park, there is an approximate play area renovation boundary noted in the orange section that you can see, that's the dotted line. And then there's seat retaining wall that are noted with the yellow dash lines. Those are the orange ones that I kind of mentioned. And then also there's a concrete pathway noted with the pink dash lines. And that's basically the sidewalk that allows obviously people to get through to and fro throughout the park. That could be a platform for the artist to produce. And then also the blue areas are possible seating areas that have been discussed through you all's survey of your desire to see something of an investment into the concern of the park. Next slide, please. The art location possibilities also extends not only to the playground, mini ground area, but it also extends throughout the park. And on the slide at the very top, it's a perspective photo from the mini park, what looks like back behind it. And the concern is to show you that there are larger walls that are notified in the park area that are indicated by 1, 2, and 3. And those numbered areas are recognized for where a majority of the visual impact will take place in reference to the art. They're noted by sections 1, 2, and 3, as well as the walkways that are throughout the park that can be noted. The smaller image at the bottom, when you see the lime green, that is basically the parkway, the pathway, I should say, the sidewalk that stretches throughout the park that also can be touched. With that, I want to let Janice speak to one of the particulars I believe is going to come on the next slide as it relates to the walls. There was a concern about that we want to share. Janice?
Oh, yeah. So for the wall number, I guess the green wall with the stairways, those are parks wall and stairs, and so that could be a possible location if we want to put mural artwork on that one. For the pink wall, the large wall, so that wall is part of the neighbor's wall. So there is some property issue, but and this is something we could talk with the property owner and see if we could if the community are interested to have a mural art on that large wall, we could talk with the owner and come up with an agreement, see if that's something the community wants to do, to put an artwork there. And yeah.
All right, next slide, please.
So for those possible areas where art could be included, for the artist to create artwork for those areas,
Damon is frozen at the moment. And so, oh, there he is. You back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Okay. So for those designated art areas, for art that can go, you guys have, the community has a strong interest in a diverse conceptual design to go in those areas. So those areas that, where we decide to put the art, the community has spoken, they're looking for something that is colorful, abstract shapes, geometric shapes, possible natural landmarks, symbolic cultural images, rhythm, art, and education, cultural artifacts, Seattle landmarks. And you definitely mentioned no neon colors or bright colors, no specific people or icons, definitely no political content.
And just want to add to that before we go to the next slide, if you could go back real quick. Thank you. That all of these attributes are open to interpretation based on what the artist will provide. You all gave so many different diverse options that our synthesis was to glean from the content of what you were sharing. And so when we open it up, just know that it's not the one or the two, or that the artist will have to utilize all of these, but that we are really paying more concentration to allowing the artist to provide a response, as we will talk about on the next slide. But the ones that we really want to make sure that we heard are those that relate to the no neon colors, no specific people or icons, or no political content. We definitely heard you on there, and we want to make sure that you understand that we will definitely steer the artist in a way that lets them know that the community that's there doesn't want to have, challenging language or visual content that's going to come against, individual neighbors. And so just want to let you know that we heard you. All right.
Yes. Yep.
So as that lends itself to the content narrative, when murals are created and when they're dealing with communities of diversity and public art actions, as I've learned, and Damon is learning, and we understand the perspective of doing public art is very different than doing studio art. Both Damon and I are studio artists as well as public artists. And so there's a resource that when the opportunities or perspective goes out, the artist has to comply to a certain degree. And that compliance is about a balance between their skills, their expertise to produce something visual and appealing, but also that it has a subtle obligation to kind of hit certain target points. And you guys have, I'm speaking, you guys are speaking to the narrative of you, it's the community from the survey that you guys are part of this equation. And the narratives that you all shared in such a diverse way related to aspects of inspiration, imaginative, playful, friendly, celebratory, educational, cultural, all-inclusive cultures that relate but not limited to Pan-African, African-American, Native American, Pan-Asian American, Jewish American, and non-white Eurocentric content. And so the reality of this notion is that, again, we hear what you're sharing, we hear the perspective of diversity that you would like to see. And we're excited to find out, once we begin to put the art call together, to send it out to the many artists that are in this region and in this area, in this city and state, to find out what they can return to us as that option. But we would like to believe that we've been able to synthesize your comments and your thoughts about this particular community. Next slide.
Thank you, Hasaan. So taking all that in consideration, when we put this call together for artists to take part in this, we would definitely, the call for the mural or wall art with engaging interactive content, all in 1 second. The call, look.
Okay. It looks like Damon is having some technical difficulties. Saturday morning blues, brother. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll share what he was about to talk about. Essentially, the focus of the art call will be essentially to synthesize again your comments and your concerns about what it is that we believe that you would like to see. And so for the first bullet, the call will be a call for mural or wall art, which will be able to engage with the community in a visual two-dimensional format. In the park, there's those large walls that are the biggest space for an artist to produce. And with that, we would like to capitalize on that. And especially because you all shared with us the desire of seeing something visual, to see something interactive, and to see something colorful and cultural to the point of that. The second bullet is an inclusively colorful and cultural narrative that celebrates this region's history, and how the artist chooses to produce that will be completely up to them. My position and Damon's position, as well as the Office of Arts and Culture and Parks, is not really to tell the artist exactly what to do, and but to give them a perspective of some of the barriers of perspective that we would like to see, as well as what the community would like to see. The third point is the Central District history and the contemporary identity, generating a feeling that acknowledges the diverse ethnic communities rather than a specific singular identity or a singular entity. If you're looking at the example that we're showing here, created by Melvin Freeman, another phenomenal artist in Seattle, We Are Water is on the exterior wall near the NAM Northwest African American Museum wall. I believe that's 23rd Street. Jason, you can correct me if that's incorrect. I think that's 23rd Avenue. Okay, and to that point, that particular piece is specifically about the African American community with a certain identity that associates to that community, to the Central District. Now, the work that we're trying to provide, or to provide scope, will not be as isolated to one specific culture. And so please know that we recognize that there is diversity on 23rd Ave. There's diversity all throughout this city, and not that one particular culture should not be acknowledged or should not be found valued. But this particular public work that we're trying to steer will be one that's diverse and that is inclusive of all, because our current community in this particular area is a reflection of that. So we definitely hear the desire for cultural diversity. The last bullet is inclusive of artifacts and symbolism or educational content, polychromatic, which is essentially multiple colors, shapes, diversity, and text. This point I want to also to acknowledge, being the educator of the team between myself and Damon, to recognize the value that children will be in the park. And seeing a wall with beautiful colors and shapes and recognition to symbolism to either particular cultures or to the state of Washington is always a good opportunity to infiltrate those designs and compositions with something that's educational. And so that will be a part of the art call, is to make sure that there's something that the young folks can be engaged with. Many times art can be highbrow, it can be very intellectualized, it can be very stimulating visually, but sometimes it's not always understood. And so one of the main things that we recognize from the survey is to make sure that somehow it's interactive for the young folks who are in the park to play. And how the artist does that, of course, will be up to the artist to design and to conceptualize, but it will be a part of the narrative that we want them to make sure that they hit as far as one of the requirements of the composition's narrative. Next slide. And I just want to say I got a text from Damon Brown that his technical difficulties went out for a second, and oh, okay, here he's back. And so Damon, just go ahead and get yourself settled, and I'm gonna take this and then we'll have you jump back in, and so that way you don't have to come running off the hot seat. So the next steps that we're looking at for this particular project that we're all excited about doing is continuing to work with Jason in the Office of Arts and Culture to actually craft the language that will be in the art call. And then the next one is to distribute it through the media channels, all of the resources that we all have or that we share through the offices that we work for. The art call will sit into the public domain roughly about 6 to 8 weeks. And from that time, we look to harvest and hear back from any of the particular artists who are willing to take on the project. Once that begins to happen, we'll go into a review process where we will take roughly anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to review all the works that come in. After that, we will have a selection of 4 finalists to interview in reference to the works that we've seen and evaluated. After that, there will be introduced, or that we will introduce the selected artist to, or our art team essentially will be about selecting that artist for the actual project. And so the process kind of goes away for a bit because we're kind of working on it to develop it, to have it manifest to your community and to the park. So it doesn't happen overnight, but with the respect of that is that the process for these concerns are what we're looking to kind of deliver and to continue to work in an administrative manner to be able to achieve what it is that we desire. Damon, you want to jump in on the rest of what we're talking about as far as next steps at the Assemble Review Committee? You're on mute again.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so the next steps, we will create an art call, distribute the art call via all media channels, and you'll have within like a 6 to 8 week window. We'll receive and review artist submissions, which will take us like 2 to 3 weeks to get through those. And through that process, we will select 4 finalists to interview. Introduce selected artists to our artist team. That'll probably be me and Hasaan and Dennis and Misha, and go through the art. And we'll assemble a review committee that will go over these final artists we select. And then we'll get to go through everything that you said to put together, have them put together a concept and a piece that you approve that we will then execute. That's it.
Next slide. With the continuation of that administrative function, the artwork design phase will be then ultimately commissioned by the Office of Arts and Culture, connected to myself, Damon, to put together the final design of the work. Once the artist submits their work, we will counsel with them to see their ideas laid out and how it will begin to look in a preliminary fashion before we actually execute on the design. The window that we're looking at as far as the designing phase will be spring through summer of 2021. It will take a little bit of time, but hopefully it doesn't take too much time before we're able to see the final works out there at the park. The final artist selection will take place in the springtime of this year, and then the installation of the work will be at the least or the latest time of summer 2021. And even though the design phase will give us an idea about what the park will look like, and we'll have that by the summer, the actual installation or the execution of it will take place in summer of 2022. All right, next slide, next slide. So questions at this time, of course, if you have questions, please use the Q&A function to submit the questions. If your questions are for a specific speaker, please go ahead and put their name at the beginning of your question so that we can know who you're directing it to. Understand that there has been a recording of this presentation and it will be available on the Spruce Street Mini Park Project website. A link will be emailed to all the attendees, and I believe Jason will manage that. Jason, you want to take that on?
Yeah, we'll do that. And then also, again, if there are any other questions that you have after this presentation, or if they are specific to parks, you can definitely email me or call me at the number and email below. And then also for park playground related questions, you can talk to Janice. So I guess we will, if I can escape out of this, we can look at questions and answers, answer any questions people have from the audience. Janice, are there any questions?
So far, no questions. We'll wait a few minutes. People might be typing.
Was there an indication, Jason, that there was an audience or that there were folks who were listening at this time?
Yeah, we have people in attendance here.
Okay, cool.
There is a question. Hold on. Okay, so there is a question. It's from Brian Kern. He said, great presentation, thank you. I appreciate the recognition of the ethnic diversity within the community. What about LGBTQ community? I guess that would be a question to, I don't know, Jason, Hasaan, Damon.
Jason, would you like to speak to that first before I speak?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we for our artwork projects we speak to the entire community, and definitely having the LGBTQ plus community certainly would have a voice and be recognized in this project. Hasaan and Damon, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for the question. I know that the content of the presentation did not speak to that or did not have it indicated, but it's definitely understood that the focus that we are looking to share is as broad as possible to make sure that not only the specific neighbors within the community are being recognized, but even those that aren't. The notion of inclusivity is really the spearhead about what the art call would look to provide. So definitely thank you for that question.
Brian said, great, thank you. Thank you, Brian, for the question.
So I think, I think maybe if anybody else has any questions they want to type in, I think just sort of just acknowledging, thank you for being here today. And, it's not the option that we are truly wanting to speak in this format, but of course with the ongoing pandemic, this is what we're limited to. But just know that, this process is going to continue until the artist installs in the summer of 2022, and to know that once the artist is on board, we're going to try to make as many opportunities for the artist to connect with the community, so that we're not just sort of ending the community process here. This goes throughout, even to installation of the artwork. So just know that hopefully, in the summertime, we might be able to do some more limited in-person events, in a safe manner, and hopefully we can try to find ways to connect you all with the artist.
We have two more questions. So the first one is from Suzanne. Sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. It's Keong. So Suzanne asks, hi, I am a parent of a 4-year-old and we frequent the park. I am wondering whether the art installation will include an artist statement on a plaque, etc., for more information about the work so people can learn more and answer kids' questions about the artwork.
Yeah, I can address that. Yeah, definitely. We have interpretive materials with our artworks, and often we leave it up to the artist to decide what they want to include. We don't have any specific design standards or requirements, but for something like this, we would definitely talk with the artist and saying, I think it would be important for interpretive material to be included with this artwork so that people understand what the thought process was behind this, what was the community drive behind this. So definitely we'll work with the artist to make sure that we have interpretive materials that go along with this artwork.
Thank you, Jason. We have one more question from Shannon Glass. She asked, would you accept ideas, concepts from folks who are not professional artists, or ideas that would need to be executed by others?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I think, both, Hasaan and Damon can also jump in, but I think, for for this, I mean, definitely we want to hear from the community and get input. When we commission artists, we are hiring them to come up with a vision. And, we don't want to dictate what it is to make. Otherwise, they're not really an artist at that point. They're more of just a fabricator. And so, much like we have with the process so far up until now of doing community outreach and getting input, we'll create those opportunities for the community to voice their thoughts, their ideas for possible directions for concepts. And then, the artist will then have to sort of synthesize all of that to create their work. So again, we don't want to hamstring the artist. We want to make sure that they have that latitude to sort of create the work that they normally make within that. And so, but definitely we'll have people involved in the creation of this work. Damon and Hasaan, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I can add to that. I mean, you can definitely submit them, and when we select the artists, we can definitely share those and the other things that the community has spoke to. And then at that point, again, we don't want to dictate what the artist creates. So, but if they're aware of ideas and concepts, there might be a way that they can include it or not include it or take into consideration and interpret it a different way. So I think if you have something to share, I mean, definitely share it. Hasaan, if you have something to add.
No, that's definitely fair. And I think Justin and Damon both kind of hit it on the head that we're open to hear your suggestions because, there's always an opportunity to recognize what could be a form of inspiration. And even though the artist will be taking on the position of producing the vision, what forms of inspiration that may come from the community could be visual forms of inspiration, just like verbal forms. And so we're open to hearing those so that they can be synthesized to let the artist know this is kind of what there is as a point of interest.
And also, I think maybe just to add on to that as well, with the selection of the artist, we are going to make sure that we try to find an artist that is a good fit for the project. So if it's just an artist who says, I just make what I make and I don't really need any other information, thanks, they're not going to cut it. They have to know that from the call that the information is there. They need to work with the community. They need to take the time to listen and to engage in that conversation so that when we do make the selection, Hasaan and Damon take that into consideration and know that that is a criteria. And community members who are also on the selection panel also know that too. It's like, is this person going to work well with us? Is this person a good fit for this project? And I think that kind of leads into the next question we have, which is, will priority be given to artists who grew up in or are currently living in the CD? That is, it's we often get that question a lot in our office about local artists, and typically within our program, about 70% or so of the artists that we commission are Washington or within the 3 or 4 county area here. Whether or not they need to be from the CD, we shouldn't limit that because like someone like Damon, who grew up in the CD, but no longer lives in the CD. So we don't want to limit that because the right artist might live in Renton, and that artist may have been a victim of gentrification. And so we want to make sure that, we can put in the call that, the artist has some connection to the CD, whether it be they grew up there or lived there or, visited their grandma, on Sundays. So just knowing that we can make that part of the call so that, sorry, my battery's going to run out here, so that people can, so that, that people have a connection to the CD and not necessarily limit it because, again, a lot of artists have been kicked out of the city. Damon, Hasaan, if you got anything else for that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and thank you, Jason, for kind of sharing that. Damon and I both kind of hold that position, even as we sit here. I'm not from Washington. I'm not from the CD. I've spent some time here, but if we only isolate the response of who can work at this project, we could limit the impact of what those other artists may provide. And so not to only create that kind of bottleneck perspective, but to recognize that, we're conscious of, an artist from Detroit over an artist from Washington might lend itself to a concern. Like, we would like to be a little close to home based on what this is about, this neighborhood, this community. But if the artist from Detroit is a stronger artist and has the experience to cultivate artwork that brings the community together, and the options for those who are in the city aren't doing that, well, I would like the end result to be able to reflect you all and what you desire, rather than just the person who can create it, or those that are from the neighborhood. So, Damon, you want to share a bit, being from the Seattle area?
From the Seattle area.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think, I think, yeah, gentrification, a lot of people moved. I'm from the Central District. I no longer live there. I know a lot of people that have moved all over. I just think, again, a good artist would be able to do some research, take everybody's feedback, create something that represented, again, what the community did. And this is why me and Hasaan are here, to make sure what you guys are asking and requesting is handled and executed right, and with passion and all those things. So you're in good hands with us. Yeah. To make a long story short.
Indeed.
Yes.
So we can give it another minute. We're getting about 4 minutes to 11. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So if there's one last question out there, that would be a good time. But again, just sort of thanking everybody for being here and taking the time. And we're going to do all we can, given the limitations, to connect with you all, so that this is an artwork that you're going to be proud of and happy with. Just know that this will be a treasure for the community for years to come. So I don't see any other questions. And again, here's our information. If you have any questions for either the Parks Project or the Art Project, feel free to reach out to us. If not, again, we will be around and talking with you as we go through this whole process. Again, thank you all for being here. I want to thank Hasaan and Damon for all their work up to now and for being here on a Saturday morning. If that's it, then I think thank you all, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and bye.